the Skyrim Civil War factions are deeply flawed. General Tullius is a hired soldier controlled by the elven supremacist Thalmor, and Ulfric Stormcloak wants to fight the Thalmor by making Skyrim weaker.
I fight for the men I've held in my arms, dying on foreign soil. I fight for their wives and children whose names I heard whispered in their last breath. I fight for we few who did come home, only to find our country full of strangers wearing familiar faces. I fight for my people, impoverished to pay the debts of an empire too weak to rule them, yet brands them criminals for wanting to rule themselves. I fight so that all the fighting I've already done hasn't been for nothing. I fight because I must.
In the Stormcloaks campaign for freedom in Skyrim and liberation from suffering and oppression at the hands of the Thalmor, all they are actually achieving is making Skyrim weaker. This is exactly what the Thalmor wants to happen, as it will make it much easier for them to control Skyrim, while the population are more concerned about the civil war than the threat of the Thalmor. The Stormcloaks campaign is built on a hatred of High Elves and the Thalmor. The hatred stems from the events that followed the Great War. The Great War was the name given to the large-scale armed conflict in Cyrodiil and Hammerfell between the Aldmeri Dominion and the Empire of Tamriel.
I killed a lot of High Elves in the Great War, and I didn't die. I guess that makes me a war hero. The Great War. There was nothing great about it. Thousands died on both sides. And where did it get us? Did we really save the Empire? Or did we just plant the seeds for Ulfric's uprising? And another war.
Many Nord warriors from Skyrim took part in this war to help the Empire fight the Aldmeri Dominion, which the Thalmor is in control of. If we compare it to the real world, the Dominion is a nation and the Thalmor is sort of like the controlling political party.
We're fighting because we're done bleeding for an empire that won't bleed for us. Untold numbers of Nords died defending the empire against the Dominion. And for what? Skyrim being sold to the Thalmor so the Emperor could keep his throne. We're fighting because our own Jarls, once strong, wise men, have become fearful and blind to the people's suffering. We're fighting because Skyrim needs heroes, and there's no one else but us.
The war started because the Thalmor sent an ambassador to the Imperial city with a gift in a covered cart, and an ultimatum for the new Emperor. The long list of demands included staggering tributes, disbandment of the Blades, outlawing the worship of Talos, and ceding large sections of Hammerfell to the Dominion. Emperor Titus Mede II rejected the ultimatum. The Thalmor ambassador upended the cart, spilling over 100 heads on the floor. Every Blades agent in Somerset and Valenwood had been executed, and so began the Great War. Many Nords that we see in Skyrim Civil War fought in the Great War. Ulfric, Galmar and Rickar all fought together for the Empire. The Great War ended in defeat for the Empire as they surrendered and signed a treaty called the White Gold Concordat.
I've been a daughter of Skyrim all my life. I love this land and her people. So do all the Nords that serve the Empire. Ulfric too, once. He wasn't always a self-serving egomaniac. He fought in the Imperial army in the war against the Dominion. But Ulfric and his Stormcloaks are deluding themselves. If there's any hope of a long-term victory against the Dominion, it's in the Empire.
The treaty included a ban on the worship of the beloved Nord warrior god Talos, who ascended from mere mortal Nord to divinity. Many Nords saw this as an intolerable insult, notably Ulfric Stormcloak, and many continue to worship Talos in secret.
Not this empire. The world's better without it. Certainly Skyrim is. I fought in the Imperial army in the war against the Dominion. I bled and spilled blood for the Empire. And for what? The Empire to bend its knee before those evil elf bastards? Signing a treaty meant to kill the heart of the Empire itself? To deny Talos? No. I will have no part of any such empire. and I will gladly gut anyone who says otherwise.
The Nord's anger over the White Gold Concordat is what Ulfric Stormcloak leveraged to create his army, which he humbly named after himself. The Stormcloaks understandably want to overthrow the Imperials who currently rule over Skyrim, whilst being held on a tight leash by the Thalmor.
First, we'll kick the Thalmor and their bloody Imperial puppets out of the country. Then, we will rebuild Skyrim into the land she once was. When we are done with that, we will take our army to the Dominion and show those pointy-eared bastards. Not every man is fit to be their slave.
But the thing is, the Thalmor are actually the only ones that benefit from this war. All the war does is weaken Skyrim. The longer it goes on and the weaker Skyrim becomes, the easier it will be for the Thalmor and Aldmeri Dominion to finish off what's left of the weakened winner of the Civil War.
Sir, we can't just keep trading blows with the rebels like this. It's only strengthening their resolve.
Your concerns are duly noted, Legate, but unfounded. I assure you, this war will be over in another 6 months.
Sir, this is costing lives of both Imperial loyalists and Skyrim citizens alike. And it's winning the rebels' support where they had none before.
So Ulfric Stormcloak, in all his wisdom, is actively making the Aldmeri Dominion stronger and stronger in comparison to the military forces of Skyrim. Don't get me wrong, I think he's justified in being upset about the ban on Talos worship, but instead of fighting the actual enemy in the Thalmor, all Ulfric is doing is helping them.
The rebels are only inflaming the tension and weakening the Empire by distracting it from its ultimate aim.
If Ulfric really cared about the Nords of Skyrim, instead of waging war against the Imperials, he should use his Stormcloaks to disrupt the Thalmor's operations in Skyrim, attack the embassy, defend shrines to Talos, assassinate Thalmor spies.
I just hope the war doesn't come to Riverwood. There's enough trouble in the world without those Stormcloaks stirring up more.
If he did all of that under the Stormcloak banner, the Thalmor can't blame the Empire and say they broke the treaty because the Stormcloaks are separate from the Empire. That would help the Empire and Skyrim whilst weakening the Thalmor, which seems like a much better strategy to me. But Ulfric has so much pride and also resentment in his heart for the Empire after signing the White Gold Concordat that all he can think about is destroying them, without considering that maybe the Empire didn't actually want to sign the treaty, but had no choice.
You've been here long enough to know that Nords aren't always sensible. We follow our hearts.
Some in Skyrim even think that because Ulfric has such an inflated ego, he starts the war just to become High King.
Right, the leader of the Stormcloaks. They claim to be fighting for Skyrim's freedom, but the war is really all about Ulfric wanting to be High King of Skyrim.
What happened in Hammerfell after the Great War is a lesson in why creating a rebellion against the Thalmor separate from the Empire could be a bad idea. Because of the White Gold Concordat, large portions of southern Hammerfell were ceded to the Aldmeri Dominion. The Red Guards, understandably outraged that the Empire paid for the treaty with their lands, began their own separate war with the Aldmeri. As a result, the Empire renounced Hammerfell as an imperial province. After 5 more years, they fought the Aldmeri to a standstill and signed their own treaty, after which the Aldmeri withdrew from Hammerfell, leaving southern Hammerfell devastated. In the end, the rebellion meant nothing and only served to make Hammerfell weaker. There is another side to this argument, as the Red Guards believed that had the Empire also refused to sign the White Gold Concordat, their combined strength could have truly defeated the Dominion. This is an understandable position, and they may have been right. However, the reality is, the treaty was signed, and the Empire left the fight against the Thalmor, and without the Empire's help, the Red Guards failed. The Stormcloaks might only be repeating these events in Skyrim, learning absolutely nothing from the outcome of the Redguard rebellion.
Vignar Greymane, your family was noticeably absent from the walls. Now I know why. Wouldn't the dagger in the back have sufficed?
You think this is personal? The Empire has no place in Skyrim. Not anymore. And you You have no place in Whiterun anymore.
A convenient position to
whoever did
hold
this.
now. But mark my words, old man. In the days to come, Ulfric will spread his rebellion thin. And what then?
What happened?
We need the Empire as much as it needs us. We Nords are the Empire. Our blood built it. Our blood sustains it. You, of all people, should know that.
I'm going to find whoever did this.
If this was my empire, I'd be able to worship whoever I damned well pleased. You wish to see an empire without Talos? Without its soul? We should be fighting those witch elves, not bending knee to them. The Emperor's nothing more than a puppet of the Thalmor. Skyrim needs a High King who will fight for her. And Whiterun needs a Jarl who will do the same.
Tell me, Vignar, was all this worth it? How many of those corpses lining our streets wear the faces of men who once called you friend? What about their families?
Enough! Both of you!
Maybe if the Stormcloaks win the war, they can start an alliance with whatever is left of the Redguard rebellion, but both will be so weak at this point, it probably still wouldn't be enough to take on the Thalmor. The Stormcloaks in some ways are actually not so different from the Thalmor. They are also supremacists who think their race is superior and should be exclusively ruling over the other races. The only difference is, they believe that Nords should only control Skyrim, whereas the Dominion believes that High Elves should control all of Tamriel. So whilst the Nords are more reasonable than the Thalmor in only wanting control of their own lands, they are still just as xenophobic.
You come here where you're not wanted. You eat our food, you pollute our city with your stink, and you refuse to help the Stormcloaks.
But we haven't taken a side because it's not our fight.
Hey, maybe the reason these Greyskins don't help in the war is because they're Imperial spies.
Imperial spies? You can't be serious.
Maybe we'll pay you a visit tonight, little spy. We got ways of finding out what you really are.
Do you hate the Dark Elves? Are you here to bully us and tell us to leave? You've come to the wrong city then. Windhelm's a haven of prejudice and narrow thinking, unworthy of one such as you.
The Stormcloaks, let's be honest, are racist nationalists. Their leader, Ulfric Stormcloak, believes that only the Nordic people of Skyrim are entitled to their land and their freedom.
I oppose tyranny. I oppose those who tell me how to live, what to think, and what to believe. I am a man. Skyrim is man's homeland. That is a fact I'm proud of. There is no shame in that. Read your history.
This is evidenced by the fact that the Stormcloaks actively discriminate against non-Nordic races such as the Dunmer or Dark Elves, who are forced to live in ghettos in Windhelm. It's really hard to support a faction whose ideology is based on such narrow-minded bigotry.
Help the Dark Elves? Oh, you must have heard me talking to Malfear. The Dark Elves live in a run-down slum called the Grey Quarter. Ulfric's content to keep it that way. I guess they think I can open Ulfric's eyes to their plight and get him to lift a finger on their behalf. I'm trying, but Ulfric is set in his ways. For him, there's two kinds of people in this world. Nords and the folk beneath them.
If given a chance to save one Nord or 30 Dark Elves, Ulfric would for sure pick the one Nord.
Whenever a group of marauders attack a Nord village, Ulfric is the first to sound the horn and send the men. But a group of Dark Elf refugees gets ambushed, a group of Argonians or a Khajiit caravan, no troops, no investigation, nothing. There's a group of cutthroats out there right now that Ulfric doesn't lift a finger to bring to justice, as long as they don't threaten Nord land.
The Stormcloaks also treat the Argonians like slaves, locking them out of the city and forcing them all to live in one building by the docks, working for scraps.
I came here as a hatchling. The only thing colder than Skyrim is the Nords themselves. but we stick together. Torbjorn Shattershield. I wish someone would beat the coin out of his fat fists. He clings to every septim. He says an Argonian's labor is only worth a tenth of a proper Nord worker. My people are not slaves.
The Stormcloaks' actions are also hypocritical. They claim to fight for the freedom of Skyrim, but in reality they only seek to impose their own narrow-minded ideology on the people of Skyrim. They are willing to sacrifice the lives of innocent people in their quest for power, and they show no respect for the rule of law or the institutions that keep Skyrim society stable. The perfect example of this is the death, or some would say murder, of High King Torygg.
I'm not a fool, Proventus. I mean, it's time to challenge Ulfric to face me as a man. Or march his Stormcloaks up to the gates.
He'll do no such thing. A dagger in the back is all you could expect.
He was rather straightforward with Torygg.
Torygg? He simply walked up to the boy and murdered him.
That boy was High King of Skyrim.
Ulfric challenged High King Torygg's legitimacy and claimed that his rule over Skyrim was weak due to the signing of the White Gold Concordat. Ulfric believed that Skyrim should secede from the Empire and become an independent kingdom again.
Not entirely true, though not entirely false either. Any Nord can learn the way of the voice by studying with the Greybeards, given enough ambition and dedication. My shouting Torygg to the ground proved he had neither. However, it was my sword piercing his heart that killed him.
Supporters of Ulfric argue that he acted in the best interest of Skyrim. They argue that Torygg's acceptance of the White Gold Concordat undermined Skyrim's sovereignty and was a betrayal of the region's people, and that Torygg's death proved he was too weak to rule Skyrim.
I killed Torygg to prove our wretched condition. How is the High King supposed to be the defender of Skyrim if he can't even defend himself?
Opponents of Ulfric's actions believe that killing Torygg was an act of treason and a breach of traditional Nordic principles. They argue that Ulfric should have pursued political avenues to challenge the High King's rule, rather than resorting to violence.
You should tell her that her uncle is scum that betrayed his High King. Best she know now, Advar.
You're all...
Get on with it! Rogver, you helped Ulfric Stormcloak escape the city after he murdered High King Torygg. By opening that gate for Ulfric, you betrayed the people of Solitude. He doesn't deserve to speak!
There was no murder. Ulfric challenged Torygg. He beat the High King in fair combat. Such is our way. Such is the ancient custom of Skyrim and all Nords.
Cut him down.
Ulfric admits that he straight up murdered Torygg because he thinks Torygg is weak. I think Ulfric has a warped understanding of what strength is. Strength is not someone's skill in battle. Political and mental skill are also desirable attributes of a strong leader.
I challenged him in the traditional way, and he accepted. There were many witnesses. No murder was committed. True, he didn't stand a chance against me. But that was precisely the point. He was a puppet king of the Empire, not a High King of Skyrim. His father before him, perhaps, but not Torygg. He was too privileged and too foolish. More interested in entertaining his queen than ruling his country.
The Thalmor's ultimate goal is the eradication of Talos worship and the domination of Tamriel under Elven rule. They perceive the Empire as a significant obstacle in achieving this objective, and by prolonging the Skyrim civil war, the Thalmor aim to weaken the Imperial Legion, exhausting their resources. A divided and weakened Empire will be less capable of resisting the Aldmeri Dominion's dominance.
It for you. Any last words before I send you to oblivion?
You realize this is exactly what they wanted.
What who wanted?
The Thalmor. They stirred up trouble here. Forced us to divert needed resources and throw away good soldiers, quelling this rebellion.
Ulfric is actually listed as a dormant asset to the Thalmor in their dossier found in the Thalmor embassy. They manipulated him into believing the Imperial city fell because of information he gave them, even though it had actually already been taken. The Thalmor then let him think he escaped when they actually allowed him to escape, and they see him as a valuable asset. Although it also says he becomes less cooperative eventually, and it's probably true that Ulfric just did what he had to do to survive so that he could build up the strength to take on the Thalmor.
It's a little more than a rebellion, don't you think?
The Thalmor clearly states in this dossier they want the civil war to go on as long as possible. Clear evidence that they want Skyrim weakened. They say an Imperial victory would be bad, but that doesn't mean a Stormcloak victory would be good for the Thalmor. They just don't want either side to win the war, and this is confirmed in the dossier.
We aren't the bad guys, you know.
Maybe not, but you certainly are the good guys.
Perhaps you're right. But then what does that make you?
You just said it yourself.
It makes us right.
And if I surrender?
The Empire I remember never surrendered.
That Empire is dead. And so are you.
So be it.
Just kill.
The Stormcloaks hold some really racist and nationalist ideology, and their rebellion only makes things worse for the people of Skyrim. However, that doesn't mean the Empire is perfect or fit to be the rulers of Skyrim. The Empire is also deeply flawed, maybe even to the same extent as the Stormcloaks, just in different ways.
Stop what? Taking Skyrim back from those who leave her to rot.
You're wrong, Ulfric. We need the Empire. Without it, Skyrim will assuredly fall to the Dominion.
You were there with us. You saw it. The day the Empire signed that damn treaty was the day the Empire died.
You're a damn fool.
Stand aside, woman. We've come for the General.
He has given up, but I have not.
Rika, go. You're free to leave.
I'm also free to stay and fight for what I believe in.
You're also free to die for it.
This is what you wanted? Shield brothers and sisters killing each other? Families torn apart? This is the
Damn it, woman, stand aside!
That's not the Skyrim I want to live in.
Rika, you don't have to do this.
You've left me no choice. Talos, preserve us.
The Imperial Empire essentially lost the Great War, and in signing the White Gold Concordat, surrendered a lot of political power and control over the empire to the Thalmor. Other than the ban on Talos worship, disbandment of the Blades, and losing significant territory to the Aldmeri Dominion, the Thalmor can also clearly be seen babysitting the Imperials in Skyrim. We can see justiciars roaming around arresting people.
I am a Thalmor justiciar on important business that you are interfering with. We're making sure your Emperor wasn't lying to his elven masters when he agreed the Empire would give up false gods and foolish beliefs. Now go away. And so you will die a heretic's death. Never should have come here.
Imperial legates are having meetings with Thalmor agents in Markarth.
Keep your hands to yourself. Ondolamar is the commander of the Thalmor in Markarth. Worship of Talos is strictly forbidden.
Ondolmar, a Thalmor elven supremacist, is openly living in Understone Keep, spewing racist nonsense.
Worship of You have the honor of addressing a member of the Thalmor. Bask in it. As if this craggy wretch of a city could give birth to a superiorly bred mer such as myself. No, I'm not from Markarth. I was sent here to lead the Thalmor's interests in this corner of Skyrim. It's my mission to root out all Talos worship in this city.
Galmar is clearly aware of how the Imperials are essentially just puppets for the Thalmor.
My hatred for the Empire is exceeded only by my hatred for their witch-elf puppet masters.
If you end up having to hold the Peace Council as part of the main quest, the Imperials will bring along a Thalmor babysitter with them. You can convince Tullius to make her leave, but her even being there in the first place is not a good sign for the Empire, and more evidence that they are just controlled by the Thalmor.
I hope that we have all come here in the spirit
You
of...
insult us by bringing her to this negotiation? You're Chief Talos Hunter?
That didn't take long.
Diplomat.
Hear, hear.
I have every right to be at this negotiation. I need to ensure that nothing is agreed to here that violates the terms of the White Gold Concordat.
She's part of the Imperial delegation. You can't dictate who I bring to this council.
Please, if we have to negotiate the terms of the negotiation, we will never get anywhere.
Encarno, a Thalmor, is interfering in the goings-on at the Mages College.
What? Preposterous. Just the sort of thing I would expect from mages who have nothing better to do with their time. I have made it quite clear that my only role here is as an advisor to the Archmage. I would suggest that you not further spread this rumor.
When you ask Legate Rika about the Thalmor, she just shuts down the conversation. We know she hates them. She resents their control of the Imperials, but if she was to tell you how she really feels, she would most likely be punished by the Thalmor if they ever found out.
I consider this conversation over.
The Thalmor are even having parties with influential Imperial traders, nobles and Jarls. Elenwen, who is the Thalmor ambassador to Skyrim, throws these parties to gather intel about the war and events happening in Skyrim so they can use this information to prolong the war, and the Imperials seem more than happy to attend and share this information just because they get some nice food and wine.
Well enough, I suppose. Elenwen puts a great deal of effort into these parties, and it shows. I just wonder what her real motivations are. That's inscrutable.
This is incredibly naive and is actively hurting Skyrim. It makes no sense that any self-respecting Imperial could attend one of these parties if they had even half a brain cell to figure out what the true purpose of the party is. Elenwen will even straight up tell the Dragonborn why she hosts them.
Quite often, yes. The only thing I enjoy more than luxury is sharing that luxury with those who can appreciate it. But I also enjoy learning the latest gossip and hearing the most intriguing rumors.
The actual Jarl of Solitude, Elisif, who is meant to be the next High Queen if the Imperials win the Civil War, attends these parties and just openly talks about gossip with the Thalmor. It's actually ridiculous.
Interesting lately? Any news or gossip?
I've heard those mages up in Winterhold have been trying to figure out how many dragons there are in Skyrim. They seem to think it's at least a dozen, but I'm sure they're exaggerating.
This is very worrying evidence that Elisif is not fit to be High Queen, and if the Imperials were to win the war, are they just going to continue playing nice with the Thalmor and essentially just hand Skyrim over to them?
Have you tried the wine? It's better than anything in the Blue Palace.
Is the food and drink to your liking?
Very much so, yes. Elenwen's parties are always so elegant. She really has impeccable taste. My only regret is that she doesn't host them more often.
Maybe not, because Tullius admits he can't see lasting peace with the Thalmor after you take Windhelm with the Imperials. But if this war does happen, and the Imperials end up fighting the Thalmor, they will need a better High King or Queen that doesn't spill Imperial secrets at parties.
The fiercest of the remaining rebels will continue to harass us, but by and large the people here desire peace. What I'm not so sure about is the peace we've made with the Thalmor. But we'll keep that between the two of us, alright?
Another weak point of the Empire, which is exposed at the Embassy Party and in other ways, is the influence of money on the Imperials. There are substantial rumours that the Imperials are easily influenced by money, and this includes Imperial Jarls.
Of course not. One does not gather the most important men and women of Skyrim, and then serve them cheap ale and stale bread. This is only a taste of the benefits that accrue to those that align themselves with Thalmor interests.
When you talk to Jarl Balgruuf about what side he will take in the civil war, his steward openly mocked him, saying the chests of gold probably helped the Jarls when they agreed to sign the White Gold Concordat.
And what harm is there in letting a few legionnaires die in place of your own men?
It seems cowardly.
Was it cowardly then to accept the White Gold Concordat?
This again. That was different. Was I given a chance to object to the terms of the treaty? No. The Jarls weren't asked. We were told. And we had to like it.
The chests of gold didn't hurt.
Damn it! This isn't about gold!
The Imperials also levy taxes on Skyrim's citizens, and based on what Ralof says, it's possible people in Skyrim don't think they are being used effectively.
The Nords are tired of spending our blood fighting the Empire's wars, and paying for the Empire's decadence with our taxes.
Ulfric also mentions Jarls being addicted to Imperial coin.
There hasn't been a true High King in Skyrim for generations. For too long he's been handpicked by the Emperor, and given emphatic nods by milk-drinking Jarls addicted to Imperial coin.
Ysrold mentions the Jarls being bribed as well.
Skyrim is the birthplace of humanity, the birthplace of honor, and those snowbacked Imperials renounced both when they laid down before the Thalmor. Worse still, to pay for the privilege to keep his throne, the Emperor sells Skyrim and our very gods, Talos no less, to the damn elves. And what did Torygg do? He and the Jarls that supported him? They took the Emperor's gold, sold out their people for a slave master's peace treaty. Ulfric did right killing him. Soon we'll rid Skyrim of elves, their bloody justicars, and the Jarls in their pockets. The whole damn lot of them. And we'll cleave through the Legion to get to them.
Erica, the absolute goofball, has a good old laugh about how much money he's making.
You must be new to Skyrim, or you'd already know who I am. I have a stake in most anything of importance in Solitude. I feel that it's time to put aside the grievances of the past and let peace and prosperity flourish between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion. I try to do my little part. Besides, just between you and me, it's making me pots of money.
Jarl Siggeir pretty much admits he supports the Empire because they are rich.
Why would anyone join the Stormcloaks? They have a fraction of the Empire's wealth and power. If I had my way, I'd spend all my time at parties like this, and none of it dealing with the common rabble.
General Tullius mentions a few times in his speeches how soldiers will be paid well or rewarded for their service.
The Emperor will be paying close attention to what happens here today. Men who distinguish themselves will be well rewarded. In appreciation for your exemplary service, I am doubling your pay and compensation to the widows of your fallen comrades.
So there is a lot of evidence that points towards gold being a huge motivator for Jarls, other influential people loyal to the Empire, and possibly even the Imperial soldiers. The Empire being wealthy is not necessarily a problem, right? Because having wealth is an important aspect of a strong nation and military force. You need coin to fund armies, makes sense. However, wealth can also be used for corruption, and the Thalmor are definitely using their own wealth and using the Imperials to increase their wealth and using that to further their goals in Skyrim, and the Imperials seem all too happy to accept it. The Stormcloaks will claim the Imperial leadership are milk drinkers. The Imperial leaders are certainly not as passionate as Ulfric Stormcloak. That doesn't necessarily make them weaker. You don't have to put on a strong persona to actually be strong. However, there are some clear examples of poor leadership from the Imperials in Skyrim. For one, General Tullius doesn't really seem to care all that much about the people in Skyrim. He can be quite aloof sometimes, which is not a good trait for the leader of a great army, and he can be overheard suggesting that the Imperials let the citizens of Whiterun die because Jarl Balgruuf refuses to pick a side in the war.
Well, if he wants to stand outside the protection of the Empire, fine. Let Ulfric pillage his city.
General.
You people and your damn Jarls.
Sir, you can't force a Nord to accept help he hasn't asked for.
Tullius is also not a Nord. He doesn't even come from Skyrim, he was sent from Cyrodiil. So you can understand why someone who is a proud traditional Nord would dislike the idea of someone who isn't from Skyrim ruling over them. How could Tullius understand the people and culture of Skyrim if he isn't even from there? Of course, he is only a military man, he's not really a politician, so he doesn't need to have an intricate understanding of Nord culture, he just needs to know how to lead an army. But it certainly won't help him win support from certain proud Nords.
I'm originally from Cyrodiil, sent here at the request of the Emperor himself. I'm often ordered to places with problems that need fixing. Now, while I'm certain this is all terribly interesting to you, I have important matters to attend.
It's also suggested in the game that the Empire was lazy before the Civil War started, happy to allow crime to be ignored while they sat around and spent their gold.
Hey, you're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right? Walked right into that Imperial ambush, same as us. And that thief over there.
Damn you, Stormcloaks. Skyrim was fine until you came along. Empire was nice and lazy. If they hadn't been looking for you, could have stolen that horse and been halfway to Hammerfell. You there, you and me, we shouldn't be here. It's these Stormcloaks the Empire wants.
They are also portrayed as incompetent right at the very start of Skyrim, as they order for the Dragonborn's head to be cut off despite not being on the list of criminals. It's very possible that the Dragonborn legitimately did nothing wrong and was about to be killed for nothing. The Dragonborn may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Captain, what should we do? He's not on the list.
Forget the list. He goes to the block.
By your orders, Captain. Of course. I know today wasn't the best introduction to the Legion, but I hope you'll give us another chance. The Legion could really use someone like you, especially now.
Then you have Jarl Elisif, the widow of High King Torygg and the Jarl of Solitude, in line to be High Queen of Skyrim if the Empire wins the war.
I suppose she's Jarl Elisif now. She married High King Torygg just before Ulfric killed him. The Empire supports her claim to be High Queen. I don't really have anything against her. Not her fault that her husband Torygg was bought and paid for by the Empire. But she's nothing but a puppet for the Empire now, with her husband Torygg dead. Ulfric will make sure she never takes the throne as High Queen.
Elisif is named Elisif the Fair, but don't think that means she earned that title by being a fair and just leader. She earned it for the other meaning of the word fair, as in my fair lady. Describing someone as fair means they are aristocratic, or a person with refined manners and habits or qualities of a member of a privileged or superior class. Elisif is certainly privileged, and she is heavily protected, possibly even controlled, by her stewards.
I swear to you, unnatural magics are coming from that cave. There are strange noises and lights. We need someone to investigate.
Then we will immediately send out a legion to scour the cave and secure the town. Hafengar's people will always be safe under my rule.
Your Eminence, my scrying has suggested nothing in the area. Dragonbridge is under Imperial control. This is likely superstitious nonsense.
Perhaps a more tempered reaction might be called for?
Oh, yes, of course, you were right. Falk, tell Captain Aldous I said to assign a few extra soldiers to Dragonbridge. Steward, I have an idea that might help to bolster the morale of our people in this difficult time. I think we shall have a grand parade, and let General Tullius march his troops from the Blue Palace to Castle Dour in all their finery.
What a fine
As
idea,
you know,
my
Solitude's
Jarl.
coffers are much
However,
depleted by the war
I
efforts.
would suggest we
Thane
wait until
Erika, you have a
the war
strong
has
head for
ended.
business.
One of her stewards is Erika, who is a detestable, selfish, power-hungry man who cares for nothing except fattening his already overstuffed coin pouches.
Half of the businesses in town owe me money, and I own most of the rest. I practically run Solitude already.
I'm a Thane.
He can't simply
In the
cancel an appointment
future,
with the Jarl.
you may want
He
to
serves
gain
him
that
like capital
information before
I'm afraid
talking
he
with
can't.
someone.
His authority
Risk
comes
of
from the
looking
Emperor,
like an idiot
who you
and
also
all that.
serve, technically.
He doesn't
Oh,
answer
most
to me
certainly.
in the
At
slightest.
least when Elisif
This hardly
herself
seems
asks.
fair.
If you're inquiring whether we have
Fair is a
concerns
word
about her
rarely
age
applied
and
to
inexperience,
politics, my grace.
let me
I'm
put it this
afraid you
way.
must learn to
The
accept
Thanes have every confidence in General Tullius's leadership.
I must return to the court. They simply can't make do without me.
Stormcloaks would also claim that the High King or Queen should be someone who could protect themselves in battle rather than someone who is skilled in politics and democracy. This is obviously a very debatable opinion, but in the world of Tamriel, where there is constant war, you can understand this way of thinking.
Jarls are upset. They don't all support you.
Damn the Jarls.
They demand the moot.
And damn the moot! We should risk letting those milk drinkers put Torik's woman on the throne? She'll hand Skyrim over to the elves on a silver plate.
All the more reason then. The crown would legitimize your claim.
A crown doesn't make a king.
No, but this one.
If it even exists.
It exists, and it will be the symbol of the righteousness of our cause. Think about it. The jagged crown. It heralds back to a time before Jarls and Moots. Back to the time when the king was a king because his enemies fell before him, and his people rose because they loved him. Skyrim needs that king. You will be that king, Ulfric. You must be.
The Imperials are certainly the more inclusive of the two Civil War factions, and richer and more powerful than the Stormcloaks. But despite this wealth and this power, the proud Nords of the Stormcloaks are so passionate in their hatred of the Thalmor, the ban of Talos worship, and the lazy Empire, that they could just be strong enough to defeat them. Could either of them defeat the Thalmor after the Civil War has ended? Probably not. That's why, in my humble opinion, both factions are wrong. The real enemy of Skyrim is the Thalmor, and they should not be wasting good soldiers and weakening Skyrim fighting each other.